Welcome to the Harmony Channel, and everybody pipe down in my ear. Jason Whitlock here, your host of the Harmony Channel. Thank you for joining me. Happy Wednesday to you and yours. We're going to cover the State of the Union address. Donald Trump in rare form last night. So were the Democrats. Everybody was in rare form last night. We will, before we get deep into that conversation, we want to start with our weekly check-in with Pastor Corey Brooks, who's walking across America. And I would imagine, late last night, 8, 9 o'clock, he probably wasn't walking and probably watched the State of the Union. And so we'll get Pastor Corey Brooks and Project Hood's take on the State of the Union when we start off here. So, Pastor Corey Brooks, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Looking slim as always. I heard you and Virgil chit-chatting, and everybody is congratulating you. And I'm just like everybody else. I need to get out and walk across America, and I could look as good as you.
Oh
Uh,
man.
did you get to stop and watch the State of the Union last night?
I did. I enjoyed it. Donald Trump has a way of delivering a speech that only he can do. But I think overall, most people like myself appreciated the speech and the direction that the country is going, especially with the economy.
Oh, you like the comedy the best, huh?
I mean the economy.
Oh, the
Um,
economy. I'm
but,
sorry.
but the comedy was great as well, especially when he called a few people out, and I think
Nancy Pelosi. Yeah.
yeah, and I think the right is going to definitely have a lot of commercials to run the Republican Party when they ask that question about, you know, supporting the American people over illegal immigrants, and no one on that side stood. I think that speaks volumes. That's exactly what we're experiencing in the city of Chicago. So I know a lot of people can resonate with that.
Yeah, I thought he was really aggressive and really clever about trying to draw the difference between himself and the Democrats. It's like, hey, there is a president and a party that is for you, and these guys seem to have other interests. Somalian immigrants and every other immigrant, legal, illegal, whatever. I
Right.
thought he drew a pretty good, distinct line in the sand and gave people a clear choice.
Absolutely, without a doubt. I think if for people who watch that speech and listen to the words and not so much the rhetoric, but listen to what was being said, I think there's a direct difference between both parties, and everybody can see it. And I think overall, most Americans are probably going to wake up today and be aligned closer with those points of views.
As you walk across America, but just as you walk across Chicago and deal with people in Chicago where you guys are dealing with the illegal immigration issues and all the ramifications of that, the sales point of the Democrats is that, hey, look, the unwhitening, the browning of America, black people should see that as good. As long as these illegal immigrants aren't white, that's a positive for black people. Obviously, I reject that sales pitch, but some black people do fall for it. I'm sure you those discussions go on in Chicago all the time.
Yeah, they go on in Chicago a lot, but there's a large group of people who are making their voice known and heard, and letting people know that that's not where a lot of Black people in Chicago stand. For the most part, especially when it comes to this immigration issue in Chicago, a lot of people are fed up, and they have seen a lot of funds go toward illegal immigration and a lot of protection and a lot of privileges given that should not have been given. And those things are very much needed especially on the south sides and west sides of Chicago, where things can sometimes be at the very bottom. And the economy is horrible. The neighborhoods are bad, and the schools are just as bad. So those funds could have been spent in a much better way than what they were spending in Chicago. And people see that. They realize that, and they're speaking out about it.
All right, what city are you in now, and how many miles have you covered so far?
I don't even keep track of the miles. All I know is we stopped in Monroe, Louisiana, and we left Monroe, Louisiana this weekend to come to on Sunday night to drive, which I'm so glad, to Memphis and to Nashville next week, and then we're going to drive back after we leave Nashville back to Monroe, Louisiana to start our walk back. So we're in Monroe, Louisiana, but presently today I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, and I'll be in Nashville next week for some fundraisers and some meet and greets, and then we're gonna get back to walking. So I got a little break.
You're in Memphis. They got great barbecue, great jazz music. You got to be safe, but well, I don't,
I think they had the National Guard here, so Chicago can learn some principles from the placement of the National Guard. So I think things are a little better in Memphis as far as the citizens are concerned. I talked to someone yesterday, and they were talking about just how they appreciated the National Guard being here, which I thought was really refreshing.
tell people where they can go to support you and Project Hood.
Go to projecthood.org, and they can find out about all the work that we're doing, and especially the 90,000 square foot center that we're trying to build debt free. And that's one of the reasons why I'm walking across America, and the school we're trying to build for boys and girls. So, projecthood.org.
Corey, thank you. I'll see you next week here in Nashville.
Thank you. I'll be sitting here listening to the rest of your guests. I want to hear their show.
Appreciate it. All right, let's bring in Virgil, Chad, and Wilfred Reilly. It's good to have you back, Wilfred. Haven't seen you in a bit. I want to play a couple of clips just to get us warmed up, to give people a taste of some of Trump from last night. Let's play SOT 7 and 8 back to back.
So tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. We'll balance our budget. The Somali pirates who ransacked Minnesota remind us that there are large parts of the world where bribery, corruption, and lawlessness are the norm, not the exception. Importing these cultures through unrestricted immigration and open borders brings those problems right here to the USA. And it is the American people who pay the price in higher medical bills, car insurance rates.
I thought President Trump was really aggressive last night. Let's change the lower third. Really aggressive last night, talking about the illegal immigration situation, talking about just America first, and then calling out the Somali corruption. I thought was a bit high risk, and the cameras immediately go to Ilhan Omar, and I'm sure the left isn't it racist? How could he call out the Somali people? But Virgil, I'm gonna let you fire first here. I think Trump did what's necessary. You got to be that blunt.
Yeah, I thought what he demonstrated was a brilliant dose of stagecraft. There's no other way around it. I mean, to make the statement that he did as it relates to the first duty of government is to protect American citizens, and those who agree with that, asking them to stand, and then allowing, not for a brief, stand and clap and sit down, but for that statement and the visual from that to stand for as long as he did, for him to kind of point to those people who were sitting, was a brilliant set of stagecraft. It allowed the American people to see in real time that Democrats do not care for the needs of the American people first, and that they primarily are thinking about their own political future, and the need to have illegals come in, register to vote, because he will follow this up with the issue of voter ID and the need to validate who's voting. And so all of this was brilliantly set up, brilliantly staged. It was a brilliant display of stagecraft. And if it were me and I were running for office, that section, that 2-minute section, would be on constant loop in whatever area that I was running for office in. It would be on continual loop. These people care nothing for you. They care nothing about you. And if you put them back in power, they will bring back all of the things that Republicans, particularly this president, has tried to put into place. So I thought brilliant stagecraft, brilliantly established, brilliantly set up, all of that, and then to deal head on with the Somalis. You called it aggressive. What I call aggressive is billions of dollars being bilked from the American people in fraud and abuse, and in Minnesota and Minneapolis in particular, and in places around the country. President Trump might not be the kindest, warmest, gentlest, fuzziest, but man, I came away from this speech going, he is exactly what we need in this day and this time to deal with these issues.
Wilfred, I thought this was one of his better speeches. It was a little less Trumpy and a little more formal and smooth. I really think this, I love Trump's original inauguration speech back in 2016, 17. And the other part of Trump that's kind of off the cuff, this felt more polished. Am I right?
Yeah, I think a lot of good speakers, including President Trump, forget they're even better with a teleprompter. I mean, that their remarks work if they're written, if they're practiced a few times. Yeah, I thought this was a really good speech. I agree with, and by the way, people agree. Like, I looked at the CNN data this morning, and the reaction was 63% positive among that mostly liberal CNN audience. I mean, everyone agreed that it was a pretty solid State of the Union. I mean, the goal with those is to go in there, hit the other side, pull out some sympathetic veterans, say, America's great. I mean, he had the gold medal winning hockey team there, and everyone actually stood up and cheered for them. That was the one kind of standing, he managed to get some of the Democrats still stayed in their seats. And I think that the visual that Virgil described was actually risky, and it was extremely well done. Because when Trump asked, stand up if you value American citizens more than illegal aliens, he put the opposition party in a really tough position for them, which is insane, actually. But they've been talking for years now about how, no human is illegal, no human can matter more than another. And perhaps in some odd philosophical sense that might be true, but the reality is we live in a country, we're a nation, we're a people, and everyone expects their politicians to stand up for them as Americans. And he's sort of asking, are you going to do that? Like, do you value Americans inside the American borders more than people that snuck across the border? And as soon as he asked that, the Republicans say, well, yeah, and also this is a good chance for us to score some political points, and they get up in a group clapping hands, and every Democrat, as far as I could tell, stays in their seat. So there was a chance that the Democrats would not fall for that, would also get up. And then, you could still own the moment, but the political points are gone there. But no, he played that one correctly. He also had another good line of that kind when he said, you talk about children being torn from their parents. I think that was the lead in. We oppose children being torn from their parents, and literally transitioned into sort of a facsimile of the opposite sex. That's insane. And he describes it. And then he looks over at the Democrats where people are sort of shouting and says, these people are crazy. And that is kind of one of the lines that I think a lot of people are going to remember from the talk. Most people at some level know men aren't women. So I guess this will be my closing line. When you have people passionately defending the idea that foreigners matter as much as citizens, or that men can be ladies without much effort, I think the ordinary guy who's a black guy, Italian guy, whatever, a steel worker in Poughkeepsie is going to look at that and say, these people seem a little bit nuts. And I think that was the effort that was the message Trump was trying to convey. we're over here with the hockey team. Maybe we had a beer. We know what biological sex is. I'm the president. I think you got that across pretty well.
Let's play SOT number 9 to point out exactly what Wilfred's talking about.
Look, nobody stands up. These people are crazy. I'm telling you, they're crazy.
Hold for a second, Wilfred. Hold for a second, Wilfred. Hold.
Boy, oh boy. We're lucky we have a country. With people like this, Democrats are destroying our country, but we've stopped it just in the nick of time, didn't we?
All right, now we can cut it. Wilfred, go ahead.
No, but I mean, like the guy that they just showed, I forget his name offhand, but he worked with Massey on the Epstein files. He knows what happened. He knows they lost that round. He's sitting there. He has to play his seat. He's on that team. He's has to say that, gender transitions are possible for small children. You got me. You can just see the utter irritation on the man's face. And sometimes politics is like that. I do think Trump won that round.
Chad, your favorite moment, or what was your takeaway from last night?
Well, I look at it from, as I do many things as it pertains to politics, for its historical implications. And this State of the Union address really kind of harkened back to, I would argue, kind of a morph between Nixon's '68 run, where he was running on law and order. This came in the aftermath of a Democrat Party over the course of the mid-century, who, in the midst of a Cold War, really kind of acquiesced to a lot of the radical moves that were being made in this country, which we would find was being supported by and induced in many ways by the Soviet Union, where you had the radicalization of children and youngsters on college campuses across the country. And this, of course, was giving rise to unrest, to riots, so on and so forth. And people were fed up with it. I mean, by the time you got to the late 60s, the approval rating of the civil rights movement in itself was very low. And Americans wanted change. They wanted at long last for someone to come along and re-implement order. And so here along comes Nixon, and he's running on law and order. And he says, we're going to sock it to him in this next election. And so when you look at Trump, fast forward to now, and he's looking at how the Democrats over the course of the last few decades have really kind of acquiesced to this notion, as Wilfred put it, that, we're all the same. No citizen is better than a foreigner. This is definitely the sentiment and the kind of ideology that they're putting out there. This kind of soft on immigration, soft on illegal immigration in particular, which has caused a lot of turmoil and a lot of distress. I mean, he pointed to people who were there in the balcony who have lost loved ones as a result of this kind of unfettered position on immigration, illegal immigration under the Biden administration. And a lot of Americans are fed up with it. And so Trump was speaking to that. And then it was also a morph of Reagan's 1980 run, where he was really trying to reinvigorate this spirit of national patriotism. You saw a lot of that in Trump's address as well. And so these kind of things repeat themselves. The opposition, they give in to something, or they embrace something that a lot of people believe is detrimental to the country. And here along comes the more conservative candidate, the more conservative politician, to say we're here to clean it up, and we need to get back to being a force to be reckoned with in the world. And that's what Trump demonstrated. For me, it was interesting because I actually watched the State of the Union address around 2:00 in the morning because I was busy all of yesterday. And I watched it on USA Today's YouTube channel. And one of the things that I thought were particularly noteworthy, specifically with USA Today, is over the course of the 2 hours that Trump was delivering his address, there was a message at the top of the screen that kind of hung out there that said, these statements have not been verified by USA Today. In the subsequent speech that was given by the, I believe her name is Abigail Spanberger, who won her election in Virginia by 15 points, such a message did not exist. That message was gone. And so it was very telling, specifically as it pertains to USA Today, that they are kind of capitulating to the fact that, yes, we do live in a polarized society, but one side more than the other wants more scrutiny as it pertains to, Trump and kind of our political discourse. And so the last thing that I'll say is, when it comes to a lot of the claims that Trump was making, I don't tend to take them at face value. He was talking about the lowering of prices as it pertains to eggs, as it pertains to gas, as it pertains to a lot of these things. And one wonders, I wonder, first of all, are those things true? And if they are, how were those prices lowered? I mean, I know, I speak to friends of mine, and I know this is true of my own family, that from the time Trump took office in 2024 until now, I mean, our grocery bill has increased by 20%. And yes, that's due to inflation. And that's how this thing has been trending for, the past 100 years as politicians get more and more involved in the economy. And so I wouldn't lay the increasing of our grocery bill at the feet of Trump, although I do believe that had Biden still been in office, that 20% will likely be higher because their policies tend to be worse. But for me, one of the things that I look to, and I'll land my plane here because I understand that I've been talking for a while, is that to the extent that prices are lowered, my question is, are the lowering of those prices due to price fixing and government tinkering, or is it due to deregulation? And from what I can understand on Trump's part, to his credit, it's been more to deregulation, but it's difficult to say. And I don't think any honest economist can really say whether Trump's, conservative economists, whether Trump's involvement or his deregulation did cause a kind of dropping of prices. And so for me, it's like, I don't want to be so quick to say that, Trump, everything that he said was correct and true. I understand that when it comes to politicians and them kind of analyzing the progress that has been made under their campaign or under their regime, of course, they're going to look at the glass as half full always. And this is politics. We're in the middle of a election cycle for the midterms, and Trump was campaigning for the midterms, as were the Democrats. And so it's difficult to really take any of these speeches at face value. And I think that we as Americans can stand to take a note in civics and look past the talking points and see if there's any truth to what is being said from either side.
Chad, I don't want you to ever change because you're very thoughtful and you're very thorough, and I know it's how you communicate. But you landed your plane in 3 different cities. And I say that affectionately. Wilfred, I'm gonna circle back to you, and Virgil, you chime in here as well, and Chad. But Chad just unpacked, a more nuanced take, and I think Virgil and Wilfred, you guys are making, like the level Trump was speaking to is trying to speak to probably our mothers and people like just normal people. Like here's a difference between us and them, and as it relates to the illegal immigration deal. And Wilfred, I want you to fire first here. Is it effective with Black people or people of color, or have they been so convinced that, hey, if it's less white, it's a positive, and so they won't hear, they will ignore? It's the question I asked Pastor Brooks. I'm asking you all again. Does Trump's message have a chance to land with those people that seem to see everything through a racial lens?
Well, I think it's getting more effective. I mean, even the 2 things you said there, Black people and people of color, I think people are starting to realize there's a difference there. So the Democratic coalition in the United States, and this is true for left-wing parties in general in rich countries, has been what you call a coalition of the fringes. So it's been kind of the idea that in the center, you've got maybe not even the white man anymore, but sort of like the well-groomed man in a suit. So who takes him on? Who takes on Main Street? Which, looking around the panel, might include most of us. You know, it's everybody else. It's kind of the feminists, it's the immigrants, it's the hood. And these people, this is why there's such a taboo against criticizing anyone, right? It's the people who define themselves as neurodivergent or overweight. It's everyone that challenges the norm. Those people are going against the people in the center. So it's the center cannot hold, the great African writer Chuna Akabe once said. So that's been the idea. Like, so if you're black, you and a Latino guy, a Latino cat have a lot in common because you're people of color. And I think that lately, a lot of people, from black conservatives to even genuine activists in the hood, have been kind of looking at this and saying, well, this doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, if I'm a working class black man and I live in Mobile, Alabama, and I'm a dock worker, I'm competing directly for jobs. First, with like, my poor white brother from the same city. I don't necessarily mind that much. But with all these people that are coming across the border day after day, so I don't necessarily have a lot in common with someone who's an illegal immigrant into the United States. And I think Trump's been really good on this message where he's saying every one of these people, they may want a better life. They may be decent enough people. They're Christian immigrants and so on for the most part, but they're coming here. They're taking jobs. They're committing crimes at a fairly high rate. There's not necessarily an automatic alliance that they have with Americans because of minority status or something. So, I mean, even that point where he says, do you pledge to support all Americans before foreigners? And half the room stands up and half the room doesn't. Yeah, I think if you're a grandmother of whatever color in a typical American city, yeah, I think that would work on you. But my own opinion, and not my own opinion, this is a fact. I don't think that there is anything that automatically binds a black person to an immigrant from Panama who's competing for the same job. The argument that there is based on the idea that what defines being a minority in the USA is racism, basically. John McWhorter once referred to this as the idea of being down with us. Like the defining minority experience isn't the church, it's not even hip hop culture or something, it's being down, it's being oppressed. It's racism and maybe affirmative action compensating for that or something. As a black businessman, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's been true for decades. You guys might school me on how many decades. So I think as things change, that attitude is fading. And I mean, I'm a data guy, like last thing, but you see that MSNBC recently tried to own Trump, sort of, where they ran a poll. You saw it on the screen, went viral on Twitter. But it was Trump's approval rating in terms of strongly approve, will vote for, was only 15%, disapprove was 60 or 70. I don't recall the exact figures, but I remember looking at this and saying that's actually great for a Republican president. I mean, that the typical GOP voting rate is under 10% for the African American community of the United States. So I think slowly but surely you are seeing that dam break. I don't think Trump's mouth always helps him, frankly, on this. I mean, you keep seeing these stupid controversies. Did he share a video of Barack Obama's head on a gorilla's body and so on? And you can think whatever about that. But the general idea, are we all together? Do a black man, a gay man, and a recent arrival from Sicily have everything in common? I don't think people believe that anymore.
Virgil, you think he's effective? Will this land?
Yeah, I do, and here's why. I think the coalition that began under years ago, 2020, CRT, critical race theory, intersectionality, the idea that if we can cobble together these disaffected groups, put them all in a bucket together, and call them "quote unquote" people of color. That we can effectively have kind of a voting block that we can emotionally manipulate and steer in the right direction. That's been destroyed, and it's been destroyed by the real world policies, public policies that people are experiencing. You mentioned Chicago earlier. Black folks there are tired of folks who aren't them coming into their area and receiving benefits that were earmarked to help those in need in their own city. They're speaking out against that. You're seeing it in their public policy debates. You're seeing it at city council meetings and the like, and those videos are going viral. So the intersectional coalition has actually been disrupted. And Trump, by explaining that the coalition that we should have are those who are American first, they didn't want any part of that. And so that got it completely exposed last night in a massive way. Again, Republicans would do themselves well, particularly those who are who this is their election cycle for the midterms, would do themselves well to replay that over and over and over again and say, I'm not like that. I'm here for you. I'm here for Americans. And my goal is to ensure that Americans have job opportunities, have opportunities to gain and obtain wealth, have the right economic opportunities and advantages long before anyone who crosses the border illegally do. That would be the best that they could do for themselves. I think it landed well. He was aggressive. It was worth it. I think it will play very well for him in the days to come.
Chad, they showed Ilhan Omar on camera several times, and I'm just keeping it real. I hope that I don't trigger people and get myself further canceled, but just I don't see color when I see Ilhan Omar. I see that headdress, and I see like like okay, I think is that Muslim, and I think I just keeping it real. It's like a Muslim is a lawmaker in my country, some woman. That's what I don't think of like, oh, that's a woman of color, or don't think any. I just see the headdress and think like, man, we got a Muslim, we got Osama bin Laden's daughter in our Congress, and that may be unfair, but that is what runs through my mind. I don't know what. I guess she's from Somalia, and Osama's from Afghanistan, but hell, that may be, Texas. Does Georgia border Texas? Am I no? But anyway, I don't know.
No, I don't.
I'm just,
No, I mean, I think that you're not alone in that sentiment. I imagine that people who watched the State of the Union address across the country maybe had the same feelings. And, with that in mind, it does. I want to address a couple of things that the last speaker, Virgil, just said. I mean, I would be in agreement with him in that the remarks of Trump were helpful in terms of speaking to this kind of being fed up that a lot of people have in this country with the fact that we're losing the country through the facade of the virtue of multiculturalism. People want to get back to America being America and for Americans. And the fact that a lot of these ideologies are being treated with equal treatment when it comes to Islam and all the other things, I think is a problem for many Americans. My concern, and this is where I would push back against what Virgil said, at least what I think he was saying, in terms of this kind of intersectionality being kind of a new phenomenon. It's actually not a new phenomenon. It's something that's we saw in the early 20th century with this kind of push toward cultural Marxism, where you're setting up and Virgil knows this, of course, but you're setting the oppressor against the oppressed, and they get to define who the oppressed is and who the oppressor is. And of course, this is where you get the lumping of colored people and with other so-called people of color. You saw it under LBJ, where one year they passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which has actually been beneficial to immigrants, but also the following year they passed the immigration bill, which, again, this is the kind of designating Negroes, designating other so-called people of color as a kind of oppressed class insofar that you're making them kind of like a protected class, a class that demands special treatment, so on and so forth. And so when you look at that, and then you look at the kind of the sophisticated way in which intersectionality is framed in the Ivy League in the 1980s and into the 90s and even into today, I don't know that the kind of combating of DEI and CRT from a federal government standpoint is going to strike the blow that is needed to this ideology. You need a kind of cultural effort that's going to take probably just the same amount of time as it took to kind of create the predicament that we now find ourselves in. And so that includes kind of having a kind of reformation, if you will, in the institutions. I think Trump's speech is helpful, but I don't know that it's the blow that is needed. I think that it will take uh, a strong kind of cultural effort at the ground level, and one wonders whether it's too late, because the proverbial train has left the station and it's in full speed. And for every good speech that Trump gives, you have a kind of reactionary effect on the so-called other side that doubles down. And so it just kind of creates this more polarized thing that we find ourselves in.
Chad, I think I'm right there with you in terms of like, man, is it too late to fix this? We've let so many people in. We've let so many people acquire power. The number one thing, and Wilfred, I'm gonna drop this in your lap. It's just like when I look at Netflix and Amazon and just the content that we're consuming, it's so rigged against my worldview. I mean, it's. I grow, and I'm older than you guys, but to me, peak American television was Good Times and Happy Days, and the Jeffersons and All in the Family. I think that the Jeffersons represented black people moving up as a family, and Archie Bunker was kind of juxtaposed against George Jefferson, and I know a lot of Archie Bunkers, have no problem with him. Loved George Jefferson and Wheezy. I spent some time, growing up like Good Times, and had no problem with Happy Days, like both shows. But everything that's pumped into us now has such an anti-American, anti-white, anti-patriarchy, anti-America as a force for good, that like how as Chad's alluding to, it's like it's gonna take a long time to overcome all of that programming, and is it even possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. So there's the famous old line from Rupert Murdoch when he was asked why he started Fox News. He said, I know, and this is something that I know people at like the VP level at OANN, Newsmax, and they've all made this joke in their business meetings. But he was asked why when he started Fox. I thought there was an unserved target market. What was it, Bobby? 60% of the population. So I mean, I think that most people don't really believe what they're being fed, to the point where a lot of them just kind of opt out of the system, where you see like homeschooling rising above 10% of all kids, more than that among white and black Protestants. The question is it really taking? And I don't necessarily think it is. I mean, like, I had a conversation on Twitter, and I'll keep this PG for, family show, but we were talking about the definition of bluntly rape that was used in a women's studies textbook, and it included, intimacy after more than 4 drinks on a good date. Your wife or your husband asks about sex 3 times in a day, and all of this. And almost every married woman or man said, well, then, I mean, I've been sexually abused dozens of times. I mean, this is just nonsense. This is just fringe craziness that's being moved into the mainstream. And even on the most sensitive topics like this one, people were well able to say this and say, whether or not I would bring this up in class, I'm very aware that this is not real. Like, I'm very aware that, like, Michael Brown from the first BLM case is not a hero. Like, I shoot guns. I know what it means that his DNA was on the slide and trigger guard of the officer's gun. So, like, there are 2 realities. One is that the same narratives and lies from the group you're talking about, which I would define as kind of like the urban, coastal, upper middle class, Big Ten on up, like Ivy League, political left, do get pumped out into the consciousness like over and over and over again. You can still go online and buy a hoodie that says hands up, don't shoot. It's actually a bestseller on Amazon. Like, the lie just keeps coming. But nobody believes it. That's the thing. Like I did a poll on Twitter once, not just to keep dropping numbers, but where I asked, and Jason, I think we talked about this once, off air, I think, but where I asked my audience, do you actually believe men can be women? And I have kind of a bro male following, but everyone's feministy business girlfriend is also on the page. I thought it would be about 30% yes, 70% no. Or 30% yes, 70% no. It was actually, with the women allowed to be anonymous as well, 98% no, that can never happen, 2% yes. You can still find the poll on my page. There were thousands of votes. We actually put a Survey Monkey link in there. You could do it anonymously. It became almost to a level real science. And I think there are a lot of things like that where the noise just flows by you. That idea of common sense goes back to the Middle Ages. Like, you could be taught some odd religious heresy all day. You could go home and read the Bible hidden under your bed. You could be told the king is going to live forever. You could look at him. You could see he's just a man. You could say, no, he's not. That's just reality. Last thing, I do think the problem comes when the institutions live on for decades. They live on longer than people do. Because you get into the question of, is what we've been taught about history real? Like, is what we've been taught about John F. Kennedy or Martin Luther King, or looking at some of the guys on the panel, or like the riots in the 60s, is that real? Like, when it exists for a lifetime, it becomes a problem. But as of right now, I think very often we're very effective at fighting back with media outlets that are frankly now almost as big, and just saying, no, you don't believe this stuff. This stuff is nonsense. So there are two realities. Like, yes, all this crap is out there in the mainstream, but also, like, the Daily Wire, to pick one, probably has an audience very similar to the larger than that, very similar to the Washington Post, and can just say, no, that's not true. So it's a mix. You just have to be in there fighting and hoping that most people are relatively normal and know what reality is.
Wilfred, don't go anywhere. I'm going to come back and I want you to plug the new project you're working on, but I'm going to get a final thought from Virgil and Chad. Virgil and Chad, I hear Wilfred, but I'm wondering if there's not some biblical example of people falling into a heresy that is, clearly untrue, but they prefer to live in this fake, bogus world. And I think that's kind of the story of the Bible, is like God's word is inerrant and we all live in objection to it. So we're all capable of deluding ourselves into believing things that we know aren't true. There are people probably like me that think like there are no atheists. There are just people that hate God and, say that they don't believe in God. But anyway, I'm just wondering if there's, I hear what Wilfred's saying, but I also I believe in people get reprobate minds and they believe crazy stuff. Virgil?
Yeah, the Bible's replete with those kinds of examples, and time and time again, Israel would fall into delusion because they enjoyed the worship of idols. Why? Because that worship of that idol allowed them to be, sexually lascivious, right? I mean, that was the case over and over and over again. In the New Testament, we're told in the book of Romans that people suppress the truth of God that they know in unrighteousness. Why? Because they love their sin. So we are prone to delusion as a result of the fall and as a result of sin. I think that's the true reality of the spiritual nature of the world in which we live. Right? We are fallen, we are sinful, and as a result, we need to look to a Savior, one who has lived a perfect life, died a death that he did not deserve, so that we could repent and have life. One of the things that we think about often with regard to Christianity is this is the get out of jail free card so that we can get to heaven. And what we miss often is that Christ himself said, you have eternal life, and eternal life is knowing God, right? It's knowing God now and having a clear idea of the world in which we live as a result, no longer deluded by what sin offers us. I was listening to kind of what Chad was saying earlier about it's going to require a cultural change, and questioning whether or not what we saw in Trump was going to create that change. I'm not making that case at all. The case that I'm making is it is critically important for leaders, particularly men like Trump and who are in Trump's position, to say what is true, to say what is right, to say what is clear, to deal with evil, because that is the role that God has given to government. They are to suppress evil. And when he does that, he's standing in right standing. He's doing exactly what that God ordained for him to do. As it pertains to culture, I agree in that responsibility, changing culture, changing cultural norms, that job resides with the church. That's a job for church leaders to go in and begin sharing that truth. But what having a president willing to do that, say that does, is it provides a shield to some degree, a freedom by which men and women who aren't bold in the church can now feel a sense of boldness to say what's true and right and good. That's why it's a good thing for him to say, because it emboldens others to do likewise. I think that's kind of what's important. The transition is multifaceted. It's not just a speech, right? That's a day. It's also public policy. One of the things that he talked about in his speech was the removal of DEI, which got a tremendous applause. This is a multifaceted approach to changing culture. And right now, we are at war with truth and lies. We are at war with good and evil. And does it require everyone in culture to change to do what's right? No, we all know, biblically speaking, it just requires a remnant. It requires a remnant of those of us willing to say what's true, willing to stand on that truth, and willing to function regardless of the evil that comes against us for doing so. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we day after day, time after time, jump on a podcast like this and share the truth with a hope that somebody wakes up. Somebody hears truth and turns and makes a difference, mainly toward the cause and sake of Christ. But in addition to that, be thinking rightly about policy and politics.
Chad, go ahead and take your plane off. But let's make it a short journey, Nashville to Dallas, let's say.
Okay. It's about a 2-hour flight. No, so first I just want to say to Virgil, thank you for that clarification. And I'm in total agreement. I think when it comes to, the existence of the Daily Wires and other such conservative outlets, I think we mustn't take for granted the kind of dialectical component to a lot of this. I mean, because the fact is, a lot of these hollow and deceptive philosophies have seeped into all aspects of culture, whether they be so-called liberal or whether they be so-called conservative. There's a lot of these sentiments and these ideologies that are kind of caked in to the way that we think, the way that we operate, the way that we treat one another. We might not adhere on the so-called conservative side to the extremes of so-called leftism, but there's a lot of feminist beliefs. There's a lot of so-called anti-racist beliefs. There's a lot of these sentiments that are true even in so-called conservative circles. So we mustn't take for granted the dialectical component of all of this. And then to answer your question, Jason, we read in Isaiah, I believe, 8:12-13, and I know I mentioned this verse on this show before, where it says, do not call conspiracy what these evil and wicked people call conspiracy. Do not fear what they fear and do not dread it. The Lord your God is holy. It is he who you should fear. It is he who you should dread. And so, this idea of, buying into or kind of embracing all of the whims of the world, whatever the way the wind blows or what have you, as a Christian people, we ought not to, contort ourselves and get all bent out of shape over these things. We should trust that he alone is God and it's he alone whom we should fear. And so that's one of the things that I would hope that those who profess to be Christians would take to heart.
Chad, Virgil, thank you guys so much. Wilfred, I know you're involved in an exciting new project that I wanted to give you the opportunity to plug. Get us up to speed.
Sure, yeah, thanks. So, what you're talking about, I'm one of the founders of what's probably the first large anti-woke company, which is called Unified Solutions America. Anyone in the audience who wants to check that out can go to unifiedsolutionsAmerica.com. That's just one phrase together, Unified Solutions America, USA. But a bunch of us really came together and decided we liked this idea. It's myself, Kevin Jackson, formerly of Fox, who I think a lot of you guys know from kind of the African American business world, but Brooks Crenshaw, formerly of the Navy SEAL teams, Intel guy there. The three of us are the founders, but we're working with Jason Riley from the Wall Street Journal, Ian Rowe from Vertex Academy, James Lindsay is going to do some consulting with us. Local Distance, Michael Young, the philosopher, blah, blah, blah. But a bunch of people, Colin Wright, the guy who went viral for saying there are only two sexes, the biologist, no, Charles Love, a number of other people. But the focus of the business is that we actually go into companies and remove a lot of the crap that's gotten lodged there during the past sort of decade or more. And which is now illegal per a lot of the things the Trump administration is saying. So there are really three components. Like we have AI tools that can scan your business praxis, your hiring, your material, all that stuff for a lot of the DEI language, a lot of the policies that have been added by almost everyone, by every corporate client we've looked at. The second piece, which is really, I think, the core thing that'll appeal, and I'd be interested in talking to some of you guys about, but is that we can come in and explain what's really been happening with Michael, with James, with me, with Kevin, what the roots of this stuff are, what critical theory is, why you've been privilege walking and putting your pronouns in your signature and exactly proportionately hiring by race for 15 years and so on. So we have day-long seminars that we can do. We can discuss race. We can discuss gender. What's critical theory? Who was Michel Foucault? And again, if you go to unifiedsolutionsAmerica.com, check out our advisory board, check out our consultants. Frank McCormick is another one, but it's a pretty impressive roster of people. And the third thing, we can actually replace what you've been doing in terms of hiring, training, promotions with purely quantifiable metrics that are based to some extent on what the military's elite teams do, that Brooks and some of the former SEALs, et cetera, that we expect to work with are putting together. And so that's the basic business model. I will note right now we're doing what's called a Reg CF IPO, kind of last pitch, but that's stock-based fundraising. Essentially, that's not a charitable donations project. We're releasing 10% of our common stock. You can buy it. And I mean, we expect to be a very profitable company. We're looking at our first Fortune 500 clients right now. We're on the phones pitching clients. Myself and Kevin have very high level backgrounds in sales. We expect to get some of them. So, I mean, we expect that people, well, we can't say we expect you'll make money if you invest, but there's a very good chance if for the price of a steak dinner you get involved, you will be successful along with us. So if you go to the website, the button invest if you want to help fight DEI, that's right there on the front page. You can also look up Equity Street, EQUITY Street. That's our broker, very well-known, kind of conventional company. They're running the IPO, the Reg CF IPO. If you look up Equity Street and Unified Solutions America, you'll find that. If that's something you feel you can safely do, you're ready for that right now, you can get involved. But the basic idea is we need companies to go in there. For a decade or more, people have been terrified they're going to get sued if they don't do this crap, moving away from the sales pitch. I think the reality is now the reverse. Like we've seen fair admissions. If you are hiring and firing because of race, you can now get sued. You can now face penalties for that reason. We want to bring that home to the business world. So now how do you get rid of it? If you have last single line, but the University of Michigan, and I'm an Illinois man, ILLINI, but they had 240 people on staff just to administer DEI. They had a separate building full of these boys, 240 people. Everyone made six figures because they thought it would be rude to pay a black executive less than that. If you've got that, by the way, as a black executive, I don't mind that rule in corporate America. But if you have that kind of thing in your business, to some extent, you've got a cancer in your business. How do you get rid of it? we think, all banter aside, we can help you with that. So that is the idea of the business. That's Unified Solutions America.
It sounds like you're offering colonics to human resource departments. Uh, because
Well, I don't
and
think
they
human
need it.
resources. Well, I don't think HR is going to be our friend in the company. When
Yeah,
we
no.
look at who's trying to bring us in, it's what we find is that a lot of C-level guys read kind of that McKinsey report that came out a few years ago that said that DEI correlates with profitability. And my take on that would be, and I'm willing to tell CEOs this for free, all that means is if you're a big profitable corporation, you can afford to spend a lot of money on BS. So you find that everything of that kind, belonging, charitable giving correlates with profitability. But if you're one step down, if you're a second mover, hard charging company, and you start spending money on that stuff, you're going to go broke. You don't have those kind of resources. So we are going to go to that second tier of companies like Fortune 1000 and maybe advise them to get rid of it. And we expect HR to passionately resist that. Maybe that brings up the question: why do you have 50 HR people if you have 600 employees? There's a lot of stuff that's going on in business that may not necessarily make a whole lot of sense. If you're a shoe company, your goal is to sell shoes, as Mr. Michael Jordan said many years ago. It's not really to do charitable outreach to the Hispanic American community or whatever.
It how confident do you feel, like, let's say uh, JD Vance or someone off the Trump tree isn't our next president, that policies and laws and things that Trump and these guys have installed could get overturned? It's kind of seems like you're betting a little bit that Trump and the administration and the political people going against DEI, that's going to last beyond Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, I will tell you personally, I always overpay my taxes. Like, I don't want to wind up in a situation personally where I'm, dealing with the consequences of that. No, I do think that, first of all, I can't stand the kind of threats that are made in politics to people that are just trying to earn a living. Like, you've seen Susan Rice, for example, try to make these threats like, if we are back in power, we're going to come after companies that are following these encouragements to get rid of DEI. The two things I would say about that are, first, that's a good reason for people in business to back Vance or Rubio or whoever the GOP contender is. I mean, right now, that's a 55% positive chance to win on Polymarket. The second thing is, I think there really are protections for a lot of this stuff. Like, if you look at fair admissions, pure affirmative action in academia, and there's commentary on business in that case as well, is or should be gone. So it's not this isn't just an executive order matter. Like, the institutions of society are really starting to turn against this stuff. And we think there is a base that we can pivot on when it comes to that. So, like, Kim Herman, who works for one of the major right-wing legal centers in the country, is on our advisory board. And we are getting legal recommendations for the kind of the baseline that's associated with everything we're doing. So, I mean, if you're in business, one, you should probably throw some money at the Vance campaign, but also, two, there is a legal Supreme Court level core behind the things that we're backing. And also, I think that politicians tend to be kind of craven cowards, certainly on the Dem side. One of the big things behind support for trans rights, quote unquote, or for DEI, was that before people really understood the impact of a lot of this stuff, when pre-Elon Twitter, there wasn't a lot of honest discussion of a lot of this stuff. You could produce figures showing that most people were in support. I was kind of rambly on that answer there. But now I think people have pretty openly turned against this. And so you're seeing major Dem candidates like Gavin Newsom trying really, really hard to pivot to the center.
I'll give you the example. We just talked about it today, Wilfred, on the show with Danny Cannell. You should look this up. A black NFL executive, Ryan Poles, general manager of the Chicago Bears, he's at the combine and he just basically said the Rooney Rule is crazy or strange. This is a black general manager for the Chicago Bears. And if you go look at the NFL, just their last head coaching hiring cycle, NFL ownership basically just said, hey, man, we're done. We're just going to hire whoever we believe in. We're not going to force black coaches down our franchise's throats. And so you're right. When the NFL seems to be pivoting and people have had it, Unified Solutions America, I think this is a great idea. I'm hearing it for the first time. This is my honest, authentic reaction. It's necessary. I wish I had thought of this beforehand, but this is like the natural boomerang backlash. You know the fat woman that was in like the onesie or a Lululemon outfit preaching CRT in front of a chalkboard on a college campus. I knew there would be a backlash to this. I didn't know that Wilfred would be leading that. But a bunch of men running in and going, hey, that fat woman that was just in here, she was crazy. Here's the truth. We need that everywhere. So good luck to you guys. And, we'll be monitoring this and talking about this into the future. Thank you, Wilfred. And thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time on Harmony.
Up so divided, stop fighting and stand tall. We used to be a nation, one united. Now we're headed for downfall. God, let your light shine down.